we are online here. Hello everybody. It's good to see you. I finally got my stuff hung up on my back walls over here. So welcome to the new backdrop for my office. You can see it there, which is nice. I got one of those Alexas back there, which is cool because we got Alexas throughout the house and we control the lights and the front door and the Nest cameras and all that through that. So I didn't think it was going to be as cool as I think it is, but I do think it's pretty cool now that I actually know how to use it and play around with it. So it's cool. Anyway, happy Monday. Let's get started here. We've got a bunch of questions and here we go. Kristen Lattis asks, what are some of the most effective market research strategies when you have trouble getting in touch with online entrepreneurs making above six figures? I'm a launch copywriter for online entrepreneurs. I want to shift my messaging and branding towards higher level entrepreneurs, but have trouble getting in touch with them to ask questions. It's either I never get a reply or their assistant will say no to me. I also can't tell who makes that kind of money just by looking at their profile. That is a very good question. So you are dealing with what everybody is dealing with, regardless of what industry you're in, which is how do you identify your audience and then how do you get in touch with them, right? And so what I would say, you use the word market research, which I think was a great comment or a great wording, because that's what it is at this point. It's research. You don't know. You have to have a hypothesis, and then you have to test your hypothesis. And what I found is the best way to test that hypothesis is to just make things up and try it. Like, so I can give you a specific example. I'm working with a company that I am partners in with two other people, and we are doing some testing right now, and we have been testing different things that don't exist. We've been just making them up, and we're putting them out to the community of people that we think are our right audience, and we're just throwing stuff out there and seeing what sticks and doing that in a very methodical way. So it's not like we're just doing it randomly and not learning anything, but the point is that we're not obsessing over getting it right. We're obsessing over testing and making sure that every time we do something, we change one minor variable and then test again. So if you're telling me, well, I tried calling people and it didn't work. Okay, well, who did you call? How many times did you call them? How many total phone calls did you make? All those questions, you can start to get more and more focused in to determine if you're calling the right people, if you have the proper messaging, all that sort of stuff. So what I would recommend to anybody who's trying to figure out marketing of any kind is you're gonna have to think of each step in the process as a win, not just the close at the end. Because if you only are looking at the close at the end, you're going to be disappointed and are going to quit before you get there, because you have to have a whole bunch of little wins to lead up to that close at the end. So with that in mind, that's what I would recommend. I would say, and then you also said you have trouble finding out who they are or getting in touch with them. Yeah, it might, I mean, depending on when you say higher level entrepreneurs, I don't know how high a level entrepreneurs you mean, but I think you're probably right. You're going to probably have to go through different channels depending on how high up the food chain you're going to go. And then sometimes you might be surprised. Sometimes people just hang out on LinkedIn. There's a particular category of people that fall into that category. So, yeah, so A/B test and then try to get a conversion. And a win is a conversion at the rate that you want it to be and need it to be. That's it. Don't worry so much about the end thing. Worry about making those wins every step along the way. We just had a big win with that company that I was just talking about earlier. Because after a month plus of testing and getting not at all the results we wanted, we finally discovered something that within that we sent out some messaging and we got responses back immediately. And now we're going to do a few more tests, and if we keep getting those responses back, we got to figure it out. Now we move on to the next phase. Cool. So yeah, so reach out to me if you want to talk more about that. Always happy to chat with folks. Um, Mariel Goodrich asks, how do I know if I am charging appropriately for a new concept? IL Bartenda is a concierge mixology service for private and public events. We specialize in organic fresh fruit and herb cocktails and mocktails. We are a full service caterer for the bar side of events. We graphic design custom menus for every event based on themes, guests of honor, and clients' desires. The menu only serves as a guide, and we encourage guests to create their own cocktails or mocktails from the fresh fruit bar with the guidance of their fresh fruit mixologists. We have laser engraved coconuts and taking our themes very seriously. It is an interactive entertainment experience. Okay, that's. I am finding that new potential clients are having major sticker shock from my proposals. There really is no comparable company as I developed all these recipes myself. The fact we are using organic fresh fruit causes our service to be more expensive than a bar that would use things like processed sour mix and juices from concentrate. I'm only making profit from prep and service time. Everything else is direct pricing to customers, as I do not yet have a liquor license and do not have brick and mortar to store fruits. I don't think people realize the real meat of the cost is in the themed supplies, liquor, and fruit. I do not make anything off of that. Other mobile bar services just show up and pour what is provided or supply a small menu using your average mixers and liquors. All 500 of our recipes can be made with or without liquor because the fruits and herbs are giving the flavor, not the liquor. Thank you in advance. I'm incredibly excited to be part of this AO team. Awesome. Mariel, welcome, and thanks for your question. So here is my reaction to this. How do I know if I'm charging appropriately for a new concept? So first thing is, you said interactive entertainment experience. So you're selling on value, right? Like, so you don't really want the customer who just is like, I need somebody to 10 bar over here at my event. Like, if that's all they're concerned with, they should go find a cheaper alternative. If they're getting hung up on like that's really what they want, then they don't want you, because you provide an interactive entertainment experience. You said it yourself. So you need somebody who really understands that they're getting more than just somebody who's going to give them a bartending service. The other thing that you point out that I think is interesting is you're using organic fresh fruit. Okay, that's expensive, right? Those are expensive inputs, so expensive outputs, as you've pointed out. And you're only making profit from the prep and service time. So meaning like you're only making money on the labor side. You're passing everything else through. So I guess my 2 bits of feedback on this would be: 1, make sure you're correctly identifying your target customer and that you're only talking to that proper customer and not the one who just wants you to 10 bar, because then they understand the whole experience, or you have to help them understand the whole experience in your sales process. And also maybe just when you do your proposals, I would break it out if you're not doing that already. I mean, maybe instead of showing just the, like if you truly don't make any markup on all that other stuff, I would just give them a price for your service time and your prep time and be like, hey, this costs, I have no idea what it costs, $1,000, $10,000, whatever it is. This costs $1,000, and they'll go, oh, that sounds like pretty good. And then you just got to buy the supplies, which are a pass through, and we can pick those up for you and pass it through to you. But you're going to pay the exact amount our cost. There's no markup on that. It's just what it costs to do this whole interactive experience. So that way, then you're probably on par or cheaper than what the gross figure is of the competitor of the non-interactive experience. So you're going to be like theoretically in people's minds less expensive, even though in the end they might end up spending more because they have to buy all those other organic fruit and all that stuff. So if you're truly passing it through, my recommendation is make sure you're actually itemizing and showing that you're passing it through, so that people get that full picture of how your pricing actually works. And then talk to the right people. If you're not talking to the right people, no, they're not going to go for it. Yeah. I think that's it. Next question, Tatiana Mametti, Boost Bowls. What are some ways I can reward my employees to keep them motivated and excited in a quick service type restaurant? The summer gets really busy and want to do something exciting where we give someone a $500 or $1,000 bonus at the end of the season. I was thinking a chart to keep track so people can really get excited. I don't want it to be a cutthroat competition. I want the team to work well together and I want them to feel appreciated. All right, cool. I have some comments on this. So there's a concept which was studied and comes down to, and I think I might have mentioned it at some point in the past, A, B, C, D, right? So to create highly effective teams, you have to create an environment that allows for A, B, C, D. A is acquire, B is bond, C is comprehend, D is defend, right? So you have to have an environment where they're able to acquire what it is they want out of the job, whether that's money or recognition or challenge or whatever it is. So you have to create an environment that for each individual person, they can acquire what it is that they want out of the job. Bond, that one's pretty straightforward. You have to make an environment where people can bond with each other and create community and have all the little inside jokes and all those sorts of things. An environment where people can be together and create that bond within the group. So you have to create an environment that can happen. C, comprehend. They have to understand what's going on, why they're doing the things that they're doing, how they make more money, or how they succeed as a team. Like they have to have a clear path to victory. And then also, if they don't have a clear path, they have to understand how they learn about that, or who they ask, and like what the chain of command is and all that. That makes people feel comfortable and able to work most efficiently as a group. And then of course D is defend. Defend means that if something goes wrong or something doesn't go the way that it's supposed to go, that they're able to defend their position, that they feel safe and secure to be able to express themselves and put themselves out there to their coworkers, to their bosses, whatever, to their customers, that they're able to defend their position so they feel safe and secure. So if you can build those four things in, that's the meat of it. So a dollar bonus is only useful in terms of creating the perhaps an acquire incentive, right? Because it's people who are but the thing you have to remember is most people aren't really incentivized by money. They say they are and they think they are, but they're really not. So the other component that I think you need to keep in mind when you're thinking through this is that people like, not even like, I shouldn't even say that. It's your job as the creator of the business to connect the wants and needs of the individual to the wants and needs of the company and the wants and needs of the team, so that ideally all of the metrics associated with those of success of those three people or three groups are aligned. So you're right in what you're thinking, that you don't want to make a cutthroat competition, because that's not gonna make people work well together. If anything, it'll make them work badly together. So I would encourage you, after everything that I said, if you are going to do like a bonus or something like that, I would say make it a team bonus. Get everybody focused on each other and working as a group and succeeding as a group. And you can do this by, a bonus should be something that is above and beyond what you expected, and that the company made more money than it expected. So therefore, it's paying out a bonus to everybody. It shouldn't be like an additional cost. It should be because they did better. So you have to make sure that your metrics and what you're measuring to determine if they get the bonus or not actually drives additional profit or revenue or all that sort of stuff. Whatever it is that you want it to be, efficiency, which equates to more dollars. So if you have the metrics connected to those things, then you're able to pay out a bonus. And if those things are connected in such a way that the team is focused on those things and everybody knows how their individual activities contribute to those outcomes, that's how you get to the point where you're able to have bonuses. And then you also have people helping each other and working towards that common goal that helps both the company, the team, and the individual all in one alignment. So when you really get into it, it's a lot more, there's a lot of detail to kind of work through. Yeah. Okay. AJ Coates, how do you choose where to focus when everything needs work? Maybe it is the phase of business growth, or perhaps it's my perspective, but I feel like nothing we're executing for our clients is performing nearly as well as it should be. I feel like the spinning plate entertainment guy who is always bouncing from one plate that's about to fall to another. With many different types of plates wobbling, I'm really struggling to apply my focus to really excelling at any one thing. All right, you bring up a great point, AJ. How do you choose what to focus on? So for me, I like the theory of constraints, as many of you have heard me say before. The theory of constraints just says that whatever the main constraint is on the business, that's what you should be focusing on. So there's probably 3 or 4 or 10 other things that you could also help and create little extra efficiencies or make things a little bit better. But what's the main constraint on the business growing indefinitely? Where is that issue? It sounds like you might have a little bit of some production issues in here as well, because you made something, but I feel like nothing we're executing for our clients is performing. So that jumps out to me as a first main constraint, if that's true. If your production is not producing the output that you want, and you have a quality control issue, or the thing that you're doing doesn't really create value for your customer, that's where I would put my focus immediately. Because if you don't have that, then you don't have anything. Because if your customers aren't happy in the end, what are you in business for, right? And then once you solve that issue and you have a good solid production process and you're delivering good value to your customers, then you probably will end up with a different constraint that you might have to focus on. Eventually your company will get to a particular size where the constraint is always the same thing, mostly. Yeah, and then it goes for longer and longer periods of time where that main constraint is the thing that's the same thing for a while. But yeah, you have to prioritize, and it doesn't matter how big your company is either. The work that I do with all these companies, big and small, it's the same thing. We have a list of 20 things we could be working on, and then we prioritize. And then the things that don't make it to the top of the list just don't get worked on, because there literally is not enough time or resources to work on everything all at once. You have to start to focus and pick out one thing. Make an itemized list. Here's something you can actually do. Make a list of all the things you could be working on, then rank them by priority, and then start at the top. And then take the most high priority thing. And if you never can finish that thing, and that's always the thing you're focusing on, because that's the main constraint, then that's what you're going to keep working on until it's resolved. And like I said, there will be eventually a constraint that's all your focus will be on. You'll have to hire other people to work on those other things, but ultimately the company's sole focus will be on that main constraint. Cool. All right, next one from Heather Brockman. When acquiring a company with existing employees, what is the best way to introduce them to the existing team and implement our current systems? I reached out to a local groomer who is selling her company. I'm looking to buy her 3 vans, and it will come with her 2 other groomers and a bather. I want to make the transition as smooth as possible, but she had no boundaries with them, and I want them to make sure I am able to keep them on board, but let them know how we run things and won't be the same. True. Okay, cool. Great point, Heather. The first thing that you do when you plan for an acquisition is you talk about an integration plan, right? The integration of the 2 companies is critical to success of any acquisition. So when you make this plan, it involves, how do we introduce our employees to the other employees? How do we onboard them? My recommendation in your particular case is I would treat these 3, 2 other groomers and a bather, these 3 employees as if they were new employees, and tell them that. Tell them like, hey, I know you guys have been doing this, but we're going to take you through our standard employee onboarding process so you guys get all the meat and potatoes that everybody else already has gotten. And then treat them just like any other new employee. That would be probably my recommendation in this particular case, because they know how to do the job in general, but it's your systems that they're going to be lacking. So just treat them like regular new employees. And then one thing to be aware of is that it's possible, because this happens quite often, that they may not, some or all of them may not make the transition to your new system. If they're used to being kind of like doing whatever they want and not being accountable to anyone, when you start to hold them accountable, they may or may not respond well to that, just based on personality and who they are. So I can think of a company that made an acquisition about 2 or 3 years ago with about 30 employees coming on board from the target company, and that company, of those employees, there's probably very few left at this point, if any. They've been totally replaced because they couldn't make the transition. Now, I wouldn't 100% blame that on the employees unless I knew the company, and I know this company did do a very good job of onboarding and making everyone feel comfortable and welcome, but they just didn't fit the culture, right? And then if they don't fit the culture, they don't fit the culture. So yeah, so treat them like new employees and just let them know what's up. Okay, Heather Brockman again. What are the steps you should take and terms you should put into legal paperwork when acquiring a company? It looks like I will be acquiring a mobile grooming company that comes with 3 vans, 3 groomers, and a bather. I've never done this and not sure where to start as far as questions to ask, what details may need from them, etc. So far, the only paperwork they have provided me are my P&L statements from the last 2 years, balance sheet, and I'm getting a price for the value of the vans, but since I can't buy a client list, I'm trying to make it fair on how to pay her for the clients she will be bringing over. Okay, great question. So first things first, the first step in any acquisition is usually an LOI. So it's your letter of intent. This is really kind of how you negotiate in writing as opposed to just having a conversation about it. You negotiate in writing through a letter of intent. I have a standard letter of intent. If you want it, email me and I'll send it to you. And then you can just kind of edit it however you want. It really means nothing. It's not, none of the letter intents are generally not binding unless they specifically state that they are binding. And so, but it's just a good way to kind of like write it out and start laying out how this deal might go. So first things you're going to need is one of those. And then in your letter of intent, you're going to include a due diligence period, which is basically like assuming that, like here's what we think the deal will look like from a price perspective, from a terms perspective, and this is all based on due diligence, and that might change once we get into it to find something different. My recommendation is that you get to LOI signed as quickly as possible because you can always change it later. And then the seller needs to realize you can always change it later. That's the whole point of diligence, is to try to figure out what's going on so you can get a more accurate valuation of the company and understand the integration process and integration risks associated with it and if it's a really good deal or not. So once you start your due diligence, you're going to need all of these statements that you're talking about. In your case, because I've talked to you about this, I also know that the vans have a considerable amount of value in the purchase price, maybe to the point where the vans are worth more than what the purchase price might be, and now that might have changed since I last spoke with you. But if that's the case, a lot of the other stuff doesn't really matter. If you could really buy it for less than the asset value, that's value investing. People try to do that with big public companies all the time. If they can find a company where the assets are worth less than the market value, then they buy that all day, or the other way around. The assets are worth more than the market value, they'll buy that all day long. But assuming that you then, on top of that, want to pay the seller something for the customers that stick around and that they help you keep around, that's more of an earn-out type situation. So basically what you would say with that is like, look, here's the purchase price. I'm just making this up. There's the purchase price. It's $100,000. That gets us the assets, the the name, the telephone number, the email address, the website, gets us all the assets of the company for $100,000, and here's how we're going to pay it to you. We're going to pay you $30,000 in cash up front, and then we're going to take $70,000 as an earnout, which will be paid out assuming that X number of revenue is made every year for the next 3 years, and then you're going to get a percentage of that. And if we hit our goals, you get the full $100,000 you thought you were going to get. If we do less than that, then you get less. If we do more than that, up to some sort of cap, I would put a cap on it, you're going to get more and a little bit of a premium because you did better than that. So it really just depends on what you're expecting in an acquisition out of the seller in terms of them helping maintain anything or not. But you can set terms up however you want. It's just really for whatever you and the seller come to. Of course, the seller wants all cash and not have to do anything. The buyer wants no cash and wants the seller to take all the risk and responsibility, and it has to somehow meet in the middle. The advantage that the buyer has over the seller is that the buyer has the opportunity to create synergies and economies of scale when the two businesses come together, and that's the point where they make a disproportionate return on their investment beyond what the seller thinks the business is worth, because the seller only knows what their business is worth by itself. You know what that business is worth in combination with yours. Not to say you should pay more to the seller because of that, because that's the value you brought, not the value that they brought. But just keep that in mind when you start looking at that. That you create an integrated pro forma of the two companies. In fact, that's what you should do if you really start to get into this. You basically show, hey, here's the company separately, here they are integrated, here's the additional delta between what we would have done next year by ourselves. Here's what it should be if we combine the two companies, and the extra profit and value that we've created because they're combined now. So do that calculation, and when you do that, that will kind of also help direct you in terms of what to offer people when you're making the deal. So that's like that. If you want to run through that one time, we can do that online for an hour. Just let me know. Next thing, Martina Wenk. How to get stronger in motivating myself. I run a home healthcare business in Switzerland. I am a nurse by trade. Doctors and hospitals refer patients to me, and I bill insurance companies for services we provide. I sometimes feel I lose motivation and direction. How do I stay on track and keep motivated and moving forward? Thanks. Great question. So my question is that, or not my question, what I've found about myself is that if I am feeling unmotivated, I have to ask myself, why am I unmotivated? Is it because I'm doing activities that are not what I naturally do? Is that really the issue? Think about it. The things that you do comfortably, that you'll just do, that you never procrastinate about, or that you're always motivated to do. These are the things that you do because you generally like them. Now, I'm not saying, I've had this talk with my son before. I run. I like to run. I'm a good runner, and I go run for long distances. Does that mean that every day I wake up and I want to go running, or that I'm supposed to go running, that I just jump out of bed and I'm happy to go running, it's easy for me to start? No, sometimes it's really hard to start. But within a minute or two of running, it's fine. I started and now I'm going and it's fun, right? And it's good. If you're not able to, first thing, you can overcome that first minute or two by just making yourself do it, right? You can just make yourself do it, and then you're doing it and you're good. I would say that then you're doing the right activity for yourself. If, however, each time you force yourself to do it for that minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes, it doesn't get any easier and it's just painful the entire time, you're probably just doing the wrong thing for you personally. I'm not a big like focus on your weaknesses type person. I'm a focus on your strength kind of person. So if whatever it is you're trying to make yourself do, you're not doing, you have to ask yourself, why am I not doing this thing? And why? And then even when I try to force myself to do it, I can't get into that zone of like, oh, I had to get myself started, but now I'm fine and I actually enjoy it. If you never get to that point, I would look closely at what is the thing I'm doing and how do I do less of that? How do I do my business so I don't do that thing? Because that isn't ever really going to get easier because there's a certain kind of personality thing there that you may never like that thing. And you may never be motivated to do that thing. And that's going to hold back the business. Like that's a clear thing that will hold back your business if the main thing that has to be done in the business is something that you hate to do. You're never going to get anywhere with that business if you are doing the thing that you hate to do. I guarantee you that if you ask anybody who's succeeded at anything, not even just in business, but succeeded at anything, however they define that, not one of them is going to say, I hated every single moment of it. Or if they do, that's going to be a very rare case. And if they are saying that, I would imagine they probably would have been a actor or something, somebody who can just like that somehow got propped up into the right like situation, and then they just had all they had to do was show up, and even that was probably hard for them too at that case. But if you have to accomplish anything, because there's going to be a lot of hard stuff you got to do, and if you're not motivated to get up and do it every day because you're doing the wrong thing, then it's going to be tough to succeed. And that's not to say that that every aspect of your business is not good for you. It just means be aware of which aspects are good and which ones are bad, and get yourselves out of the bad ones as quick as possible, because somebody in the world loves to do that thing that you hate to do. And when you start hiring people, or if you're already started hiring people, find the people who love to do those things that you hate to do. And then you're going to succeed way faster and way easier. Can't say enough about putting yourself in the right spot. Tatiana Mahmeti, should I be concerned about taking my staff on the boat for the day if a few of them are underage? We have been trying to come up with fun ways to reward our staff. After different recommendations from a few mentors, we are thinking about a big boat party on the lake, trying to figure out if we allow them to bring a guest or limit it to just employees. My husband's biggest concern is the underage employees drinking. We do not want to be liable. Is this a bad idea? Should we think of something else, or how do we handle this situation? Well, my gut reaction is this. If you really think it's a genuine concern that your underage employees are going to drink, then I'd say, yeah. Then you need to figure out a way to make it so your underage employees don't drink while you're supposed to be paying attention to them. Maybe you make it that they have to bring someone who's over, like an adult with them or something like that to participate. Maybe you just don't have alcohol. I mean, if it's really just drinking that's the issue, I mean, look, adults can have fun without alcohol. Like, right, if you've got underage people there, it's probably not a late night thing. It's probably during the day or something like that. People don't need to drink necessarily. That's just me, though. Everyone who knows me knows I don't drink, so it's easy for me to say that. So yeah, I would, if that's genuinely a concern that can really happen, or like that you have a bunch of people that you can't keep an eye on, and you think that they won't listen to the rules of like, hey, you're underage, don't drink while we're watching you. I wouldn't put myself in that situation if I were you. But otherwise, I think the boat trip idea is a great idea. Trying to think of another thing that's like that. We've also done like the ropes courses and stuff, something a little more physical if you've got younger people of all ages, underage and above. I like the rope courses and things because it, assuming everybody's physically able to do those sorts of things, just because it allows people to solve problems together. When you have people solving problems together and working together in that type of like fun environment, it just creates a shared experience that the team can kind of like rally around that they did that together. All right, that's it for that one. Derek Lacrone, when should I consider bringing in partners for a business? This is a learning system that would be primarily delivered via an app and have web access as well. Thank you. When should I consider bringing in partners for a business? I mean, I guess it just depends on when you need them, right? I would recommend or caution around bringing in partners too soon. It sounds like you're in a tech business, so don't make the mistake that a lot of tech companies do, is where they immediately say, oh, you're a partner and here's some stock for you, and you're a partner and here's some stock for you. And this whole, I mean, it seems cheap on the onset because you don't have to pay anybody, but most of the time what happens is you end up with a bunch of people who own stock in your company that don't really do anything and don't really accomplish anything with you. They don't really move you forward in any way. So it's just kind of like, makes you feel like you've got a team, but you really don't. Now, if you're talking about partners like people who are going to make an investment or that sort of thing, that's a completely different story, because now you got to get a little more serious because they're actually writing you a check and you have to convince them to write you a check. So you better have a good game plan. So when you say when is the right time, or when should you consider bringing in partners, you need to have a clear pro forma of what you're going to do with the money, how you're going to convert that money into more money, how they get their money back, what's your exit strategy, what's their exit strategy if they have options along the way, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'd have to know more about where you're at and what you're trying to accomplish. But I would just say don't enter into partnerships lightly. Make sure you've thought through really the value that you're expecting out of this person before you bring them in. Don't do it willy-nilly. All right, and then last question. Martino Wink, better time management, but how I can do it. To build up my new business, primary nursing, I work full-time in a hospital with all the shift. All my 2 other nurses are doing it, so we are using our salary for many things around the new business, but it's touching our health because we don't sleep enough. Only 3 hours a day. Ooh, that's not good. Only 3 hours a day of sleep because you're working otherwise. Yeah, I can see why you want to get that straightened out. So, all right, think of it this way, right? So you've got opportunity cost, right? If you're like, opportunity cost is the cost of spending your time doing one thing over another. So if I spend my time with a job that pays me $15 an hour when I could be doing another job that's paying me $100 an hour, my opportunity cost of doing the cheaper job is $85 an hour, right? The difference between the 15 and the 100. That rule also applies to anybody in a business when they decide to spend their time doing one thing over another. So if you're working, let's say you're working 2 full-time jobs, it sounds like you're working full-time at the hospital, and it sounds like you've got some other people that are doing the same thing, and then you're working out into the night, so you only sleep 3 hours a day. So let's say you're working 2 full-time jobs, but you're only getting paid for one of those jobs. The other job is not making you any money. Or if it is making you money, I would want to know how much is it making you per hour, and hopefully it's making you more than it would be if you just worked a double shift at your regular job, or at least shows the possibility of doing that. That's like, you've got to, like, you need to be able to see clearly that the value of that extra time that you're putting in has a clear output. Now, if you're making a ton of money working that second job on your own business, then good for you. Then you can start to shift over and eventually quit the first job, so you could put even more attention on this job that makes you more money. But one thing that I always like to remind people is that as entrepreneurs, we don't work per hour. We don't really get paid per hour the way like an employee would. But at the end of the day, we all only have so many hours in the day. And if we only have so many hours in the day, then we only can make so much per hour. So the goal is to become more and more efficient with our time and the work that we do and the places that we put our focus. And then we focus on those things that drive us the most dollars per hour of focus. So yeah, I'd have to know about where you're at with your business and where you're going with it in order to answer if you're the value of all this hard work is there or not. If it's not there, then you might need to do a pivot, shift to a new business model, charge more, do something different if you're working that much and you're not making any money and it's not justifying the effort that you're putting in, or you're not making the the value that you want to make out of all that effort. So yeah, I'd pay attention to the things, the types of work I'm doing as well. I would make a list of everything that I'm doing, because if I determine that the work that I'm doing for all those hours in the day is like administrative work that I could pay somebody outsourced to do those jobs so that I don't have to do them, then that's another way to quantify the work, the value of the time you're spending. If the work you're doing can be paid, can be done by someone else you pay $10 an hour to, and you choose to do the work yourself, you're working for $10 an hour. So think about that for a second. I'll say it again. If the work that you're doing can be done by somebody you can pay $10 an hour to, and you're choosing to do that work, then you're getting paid $10 an hour. So think about that with everything that you do, every hat that you wear in your business, because that'll help you to isolate what you should be working on and what you shouldn't be working on. Because if you're really going to just constantly work on the $10 an hour stuff, it's much more, it's less risky, and it's much more like a clearer path to $10 an hour to just work for somebody else for $10 an hour. So keep that in mind, all of you, anybody who's working in a business or building a business, that you've got to get out of those different lower level activities as quickly as possible, because they're holding you back from the higher level activities. You can't make $100, you can't make $1,000 an hour if you're making $10 an hour. All right, okay, everybody, that is it. That's all I've got for today. Thank you all for listening. It's always good to see you. I'm always available to all of you. Reach out through AO if you'd like to chat about anything. But otherwise, see you all next time. Bye.